Good evening, everyone. Ken Konchel is here tonight with the International Photography Hall of Fame doing a virtual presentation of his work. Ken's interest in architecture began at a young age, taking photographs of buildings when most other kids his age were snapping photos of friends and family pets. He received a degree in political science from Central Michigan University before moving to St. Louis in 1988. There, he employed his skills working for the St. Louis County government before leaving to work at Art St. Louis. In 2006, he became the Associate Director of the St. Louis Volunteer Lawyers and Accountants for the Arts, a job that draws on both his experience in art and economics. Ken works regularly discovering new and interesting buildings to shoot. He said, "I've photographed architecture in 16 different cities, including Chicago, Cincinnati, Denver, Kansas City, Minneapolis, and Milwaukee, but St. Louis remains his favorite place to work." Ken is also a volunteer at the International Photography Hall of Fame on every other Saturday afternoon. Ken, thank you so much for being here tonight and sharing your work. We're ready to begin.
All right. Thank you very much, Patty. I'd like to thank you and the International Photography Hall of Fame and Museum for inviting me to make a presentation. I'm first going to talk briefly about my motivation as an artist, and then I will start looking at my work. So my aim is to photograph buildings in arresting ways, creating compositions that do not immediately reveal themselves as architecture. Buildings present rich opportunities for me to imaginatively explore the angle, the cube, the curve, the triangle, and the rectangle. By examining these forms individually or by grouping them into unconventional configurations, I aspire to challenge and captivate people by introducing them to architecture's intriguing possibilities. I strive to take photographs that disclose their content in layers of meaning that more richly reward with repeated viewing. Okay, we're ready to start with my images.
And Ken, what kind of camera do you use when you go out and photograph?
It's a Linhof Cardin Color 4x5 large format monorail view camera. It was made in West Germany from 1964 to 1975. So it's a beautiful piece of machinery, and it's old, but it still works.
Sounds like it's your favorite. Okay, let's go to the first slide.
Okay, this is titled A Pair. This is the side and back exposure of the addition to the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis by the Swiss design architect Herzog and de Maurian and the Minneapolis architectural firm of record Hamel, Green, and Abramson, 2007. The photo represents my intention of exploiting unusual vantage points to craft spatial ambiguities. Next. This is titled Ando's Architecture. This is the Pulitzer Foundation for the Arts, a fine finished reinforced concrete building housing the Pulitzer's modern art collection. It's the first public building in the United States designed by Pritzker Prize-winning Japanese architect Tadao Ando, and it was completed in 2001.
So Ken, can you tell us about the shot? So explain your shot and the angles and what you were looking at.
Well, I always try to take pictures of architecture that don't have any sort of that allow me to focus on the architecture. And if there's trees or power lines or traffic signals, that really causes me to not be able to take a picture because I can't remove those. This is analog, it's not digital, so I can't Photoshop those out. So in this picture, as in all of my pictures, I really tried to capture the essence of the building.
Very good. Next shot.
Angularity. This is the exterior ceiling detail from the former St. Louis County National Auto Bank. I particularly like this image because to me it resembles abstracted flowers, with the posts being the stems and the ceiling forms looking like blooms. This was a jewel of a mid-century building located across the street from the Clayton Famous Bar. Sadly, it's been demolished. Next, arc. This is a detail of the I-255 Jefferson Barracks Bridge over the Mississippi River. The first example in St. Louis region of a tied arch bridge, and at the same time, the longest span on record at 909 feet by Alfred Benesch and Company engineers, 1984. The second span was built beginning in 1988. Next, arrangement. In the right foreground, a portion of Joe, Richard Serra's torch spiral sculpture, and at the Pulitzer Foundation by Pritzker Prize-winning Japanese architect Tadao Ando, 2001. In the left background, a portion of the eastern exterior of the Contemporary Art Museum, St. Louis, by Brad Klopfel of Allied Works of Portland, Oregon, 2003. And in between, the fence that separates the buildings. This is a perfect example of what I seek to achieve in photographing buildings, and that is distilling architecture to nothing but relationships of shape, line, form, pattern, detail, tone, and texture. Next, bank steps. The first bank building, previously the Clayton Federal Savings and Loan Building, which was originally erected as a one-story building by Bank Building 1962, with an expansion by R.A. Sarmiento 1970. Next, beam. This is the ceiling of Windhover Hall, a 90-foot-high glass-walled reception area at the Milwaukee Art Museum Quadrati Pavilion by Santiago Calatrava, 2001. This structure is the first Calatrava designed building in the USA. He's an amazing architect, and this building is one of my favorite buildings in the country, really.
Ken, what time of day was this? Was this in the evening?
No, it was in the morning. I typically like to shoot around 10 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon because the lighting conditions are most favorable to producing a compelling image.
Do you ever use a tilt shift lens? I mean, your vertical lines look nice and straight. So how do you get those shots?
I don't use one of those. I just position my camera in such a way that I'm fortunate to achieve that appearance.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Next, please. Blocks. This is a detail of a 52-story Georgia Pacific Tower in Atlanta by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, 1982. For this shot, I had to position my camera exactly to where the photograph I took did not include the Georgia Pacific Tower sign, since I do not want any distractions from the architecture. So again, as we were talking about earlier, Patty, with the Pulitzer Foundation, I don't want any obstructions to just capturing architecture in a way that makes you focus on that without any obstructions in the way.
Right. Now, Ken, I know you've won several awards along the way, so please tell us when you show one of your images that has received an award. You've won several of them in the last couple of years, so we want to know.
Okay, I'll
Next
do
image,
that.
Stephen. How's that?
All right, next. Burke Soleil. This is a detail of the sunscreen of the Milwaukee Art Museum's Quadraki Pavilion by Santiago Calatrava, 2001. The sunscreen can be raised and lowered, creating a stunning moving sculpture. Next. This is Clash. This is a roof of the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art in Kansas City by Gunnar Burkhardt and Associations, 1994. Next, Collision, detail of the Eli and Edie Broad Art Museum in East Lansing, Michigan by Zaha Hadid, 2012.
Wow. Now, Ken, tell us. So there was a whole circumference. What took your eye about this particular image?
I liked all the different lines and the different tones. I liked the different shapes. And again, I tried to take pictures of architecture that don't immediately appear to be architecture.
So this might be a good time to ask you. We have a question here from someone saying, John Berglund saying, can you talk about the work in the field versus work in the darkroom? I mean, how much happens after the shot is taken? So what do you do after you take these shots?
Well, what I do is I first make a contact print of the negative. The negative is a 4x5 sheet of film, which is 13 times larger than a 35 millimeter negative, which I know a lot of people now don't even know what that looks like because so much photography is digital. But I make a contact print, and then I determine the composition I want to produce from that negative, and then it's all in the darkroom with chemistry, with enlargers. So that's essentially how it works.
Awesome, thank you. And anyone that's watching, if you'd like to submit a question on the chat line, I'll ask it for you. Okay, Stephen, let's go to the next one. There we go. Awesome.
This is concentricity, and this is a detail of one of two temporary Burnham pavilions at Chicago's Millennium Park by London-based Zaha Hadid Architects, 2009. It's an amazing structure. The pavilion utilizes 7,000 pieces of aluminum. No two are alike, which is amazing. And they're individually bent and welded together to create this structure.
Got it. Hey, so do you shoot color at all, or are you black and white kind of guy?
I'm a black and white guy, totally. Yeah.
And you've chosen this because that you like it. It appeals to you.
Exactly.
All right. And how did you take the JB Bridge image? It seems like it would be difficult to do that. How did you do that? Said Wendy Warner.
I'm sorry, what was that?
How difficult was it to shoot the JB Bridge?
Oh, I have a story about that I'll share with you. I have a different image of that coming up that will give you an idea of and answer that question.
Excellent. Next one.
Contemporary. This is the Center of Creative Arts, formerly the B'nai Amunah Synagogue by Eric Mendelsohn, 1950. This is the first contemporary synagogue built in St. Louis. I was very interested in capturing the cantilevered roof, but from many vantage points, trees and wires compromised the composition. I ended up photographing this stunning building from the alley. So wherever it takes me to get the shot I want, I do my best to get it.
Awesome. Do you do any dodging or burning to your compositions in the darkroom?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay, and tell us about your cropping. How much do you generally crop?
I crop pretty tightly. As I've evolved as a photographer, I've done much more abstract work, which for me involves cropping more tightly. But as you'll see as we go through the images, some of the images are more representational. So obviously I'm not cropping as tightly, but my newer work, I do crop pretty tightly.
Okay, next shot. There we go.
Contour. This is the profile of the West Campus building of Washington University in St. Louis. Obviously, it was the former famous bar department store in Clayton by Marks, Flint, and Shoney Associated Architects, 1948. This is one of my favorite buildings in St. Louis because you can photograph it from different locations and produce entirely different compositions. Next, convergence. This is the roof of the University of Tennessee Health Science Center and the Memphis Police building, originally the University Interface Center by Gassner, Nathan, and Brown Architects, 1969. You know what, Patty? Actually, if you were asking me about cropping, and I have here, I have what I use to crop a contact sheet is this cropper. And it moves in a way that you can crop your contact print to produce the image, well, for me to produce the image that I'm trying to achieve.
How do you use that? I mean, what? So you print it and then you use that?
Here it is. Okay.
Okay.
This is actually a Polaroid, but it could also be a contact print. And I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, lift it up higher.
Okay.
Higher, higher. There we go. A little down. Oh, I like the cropping. There we go. Perfect.
If you can see how I've lined out what I wanted out of that negative to be printed.
Awesome.
So that's really how I achieved the look I want for my photograph.
So do you crop only in camera or sometimes in the darkroom? Asked David Altman.
Oh, both.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Okay.
Given the size of your camera and using the film, when you've chosen the subject, how many images might you take of a building? Wendy, yeah?
I typically will only take one shot, expose one piece of film. I don't bracket. I'm pretty confident and fortunate that my exposures are correct.
Very good. All right, let's go to the next image.
Okay, we did that one. Next.
Yes, we did. Next. Awesome.
Okay. This is curvilinear, and it's the detail of the exterior. I'm sorry, it's a detail of the Priory Chapel, a triple tier of thin shell concrete ruffles by Helmuth Abada and Kassebaum, HOK, 1966. This is also one of my favorite buildings as it presents multiple compositional possibilities. There are so many vantage points that you can take a picture of this building and they'll be every bit as dramatic as I'd like to think this one is. Next, delineation. This is a detail of the exterior of the Center for Civil and Human Rights in Atlanta by Philip Freelon, in partnership with Helmut, Obata, and Kassebaum, HOK, 2014. I was very fortunate in capturing this building. A security guard told me to leave, and I begged her to let me take the shot, and then I would be gone in 5 minutes. And luckily, she allowed me to do my thing. So I was very fortunate to get this image. It's one of my favorites, and it almost didn't happen.
Well, William Conkey wants to know, did you actively search for specific buildings, or you just accidentally come across your subjects?
No, I definitely have a purpose. What I rely on mostly are guidebooks that are published by the American Institute of Architects for different cities. I'll call their offices and ask if they have guidebooks. And from those guidebooks, I'll read through them for buildings that were built mostly after 1950. And from that group of possibilities, I will scout, what I call scout them, and I will drive to them. I'll look to see about the lighting conditions and whether I think there's an exciting composition to be made. And that's really my process.
Awesome. Next shot is, oh,
Devonshire.
Tower Pizza.
Devonshire Condominium, one of 4 units of the ABC condominiums facing Forest Park by W.H. Andrews of Boston, 1905. Next. Diamonds, detail of the religious center, a geodesic dome structure by R. Buckminster Fuller, 1971, at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. Next, dispersion. This is a detail of one of 2 temporary Burnham pavilions located at Chicago's Millennial Park by Amsterdam-based Ben Van Berkel of UN Studio, 2009. For this and the next image, I almost didn't get the shots. People were able to climb on these pavilions, and I decided to assume the identity of a photographer working for the city of Chicago, and told these people that I needed to get a shot of the pavilion without anyone on it. And luckily that worked. So I was impersonating someone there to get this in the next photograph. And I'm glad I took that chance.
So see tell me about this. So what's on the far left and what's on the upper right? Are those clouds?
No, they're not clouds. It's a close-up of the structure itself. It was made of some type of white material. I don't know what it was, but it almost looks like brush strokes at the top.
It does indeed.
And again, it's my attempt to make architectural photographs that don't necessarily look like architecture.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Next image. And next up, oh, that's gorgeous. That's awesome.
Thank you. That is called Divergence. It's a detail of the walkway vaulting under the Brookings Hall at Washington University by Cope and Stewartson of Philadelphia, 1899.
Were you on your back for this shot?
No, I'm never on my back for any shot. It would be impossible. Okay, here's the other shot of the bridge that I'll answer that question. This is called Duo. It's the same bridge, the Jefferson Barracks Bridge over the Mississippi River, by the same engineers. The second span was built in 1988. For both this image and the arc, I barely got the picture taken. I was positioned in the highway median to take this shot, and suddenly a policeman drove by my truck, and he approached me and told me that he had received several calls that there was a suspicious character on the highway, and that I needed to leave. And I was very fortunate that I already had my film case and my camera, and I had worked on the right exposure. I identified the right exposure, so I was just able to really, really quickly get the shot before he left. But this happened fairly close after 9/11, and I think people were really sensitive. And my camera with my tripod, as I think you saw earlier on, is very large, and it looks like it could be something maybe dangerous. So this was another fortuitous event for me to take a picture.
So Ken, how many shots do you take of a building before you know you've got something?
Again, I do an Ansel Adams called pre-visualize, where I have a pretty clear idea in my mind, the image that, or the composition and the image that I want to make before I shoot it. So I typically will only, again, use one piece of film to get the shot.
Awesome.
I know with digital cameras, you can take so many shots, and hopefully you'll get the perfect shot you want. But with me, there's a lot of pre-visualization being done that I get the shot with just one piece of film. So this is facade, which is the facade of the Caden Tower in Louisville. Its ornate brise de soleil precast panels provide a distinctive appearance by William Wesley Peters of Taliesin Associates, which is the successor firm of architect Frank Lloyd Wright, 1964. And this represents my intention of isolating a distinct architectural component to emphasize the building's essence. Next. Fanned. Side view of the Milwaukee Art Museum's Quadrati Pavilion by Santiago Calatrava, 2001. This building is the first Calatrava designed building in the USA and features a sunscreen that can be raised and lowered, creating a stunning moving sculpture. I tried to concentrate on building sculptural qualities to reinforce its design. So the top part of that structure literally can be lifted up and lifted down like wings on a bird. And every morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, it opens up, and then at 6 p.m. it closes. And it's just a striking building. I won't say it again because I've said it too many times. Next. Forms. This is the detail to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland by Pye, Cobb, Breed and Partners, 1995. And there's something on this that drives me crazy because, again, my intention of not having anything obstructing from the architecture. But you can see in the upper right-hand corner, there's a small little light fixture. Can you see it, Patty?
I see it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
So that drives me crazy, but I thought the rest of the image was interesting enough that I
Well, you could have always photoshopped it out, right? But you like somehow you accepted it.
Yes, yes. Okay.
All right.
Geometry. This is a portion of the eastern exterior of the Contemporary Art Museum by Brad Klopfel, principal architect of Allied Works of Portland, Oregon, 2003. and the Steps of the Exterior Plaza of the Pulitzer Foundation by Pritzker Prize-winning Japanese architect Tadao Ando, 2001. Next. Glow. This is the block building addition to the Nelson Atkins Museum in Kansas City by Stephen Hull Architects, 2007. The building consists of a series of 5 illuminated freestanding structures or lenses that emerge from the ground. It's really interesting. This building has a lot of people in Kansas City. When it was completed, they did not like it. And to be honest, in the daytime, it looks like a series of warehouse structures. But at night, well, as the title, it glows. And I think the architect was trying to instill in people that architecture can be enjoyed at different times of the day, and it doesn't necessarily have to be during the daytime, because this is just to see these buildings in this way, I think really makes for a striking structure.
So Ken, as we go on to the next image, the question is, do you scan your negatives and work on them in Photoshop, or are they all prints directly from the negatives?
They're all prints directly from the negatives.
All right, there we go.
Okay, this is grouping, and this is Central Middle School in Columbus, Indiana by Perkins and Will, 2007. I really like this image because it depicts a relationship of different structures and materials and tones. Okay, we'll go to the next one. This is Impressionism. This is the Hennepin County Government Center in Minneapolis by John Carl Warnicki Associates with Peterson Clark and Associates, 1977, reflected upon the Thrivent Financial Building by Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill, 1981. This is a perfect example of waiting for the right lighting conditions. It was partly cloudy, and I could not achieve the reflective result I wanted without full sunshine. So I waited, and I was able to capture it, but I can't stress how much time I wasted waiting for the sun to come out for the perfect image. Next, okay. Inconspicuous arch. I've always been challenged to photograph the arch in a unique way that hasn't been done before, and I believe that I achieved this. And this shot represents the only image I've ever had where I have a living thing in my shots, and that would be those birds, if you can see those. Interplay. This is a detail of the First Church of Christ Scientists by Robert L. Fisher, 1966. As the title of this photograph suggests, I attempted to showcase the range and subtlety of the interplay of lights and shadows that the building evokes.
Hey, Ken, how do you decide where you're going to go next? What city you're going to go to next?
Well, it's sort of started as the closest city to St. Louis I could get to, where I had a guidebook, and as I've gone to those cities, I've had to go further and further away. For example, I went to Atlanta recently, which I believe was the farthest I've traveled to shoot. I'm thinking of going to either Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. for my next photo shoot. So
Awesome.
It basically has to do with the distance from St. Louis.
But it's also what you find in the architecture book.
Right, exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Keep going. This is
Okay, this is Into Joe, and it's the perspective of Joe, which is Richard Serra's Core 10 steel torque spiral sculpture at the Pulitzer Foundation, 2001. I think this image is compelling because its monochromatic appearance almost makes it look like a charcoal drawing. So I really like that effect from this image. Next, keys. This is a detail of the Irene Walter Johnson Institute of Rehabilitation in St. Louis by Murphy and Mackey Architects, 1959, with substantial renovation by Sverdrup and Parcel, 1972. The building is part of the Washington University School of Medicine, located at the BJC Hospital complex.
So what did you're looking at lines here? Talk
Mhm.
image. So what are you looking at here? This is
It is,
dark and light.
it's just the exterior of the building above the entranceway.
But what caught your eye about this particular image? Dark and light, you've got, it's linear.
It's linear. It has some tonal range. It has, I'm very drawn to repetitive patterns that that make interesting images. So I would say it was the repetitive patterns that really caught my eye.
All right.
Okay, next, lattice. This is the corner of the United Steelworks building in Pittsburgh, formerly the IBM building by Curtis and Davis firm, 1963. I like this image because the white corner zigzag separating the two sides of the building almost looks like it was a torn photograph. So that was an effect I really thought was interesting. Layers. This is a portion of the addition to Rapson Hall, which is the College of Architecture and Landscape Architecture at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis by Stephen Hall, 2002. And what I challenge you to do with this image is focusing on just one part of the composition, like focusing on the building with the vertical lines. And when you do that, I think it produces an effect that really makes this plays with perspective. And that's another thing that I try to achieve in my images, is where your perspective is kind of fooled, or it's changed because of the composition.
So would you call yourself a modernist era and style photographer?
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
Definitely. Next, multiples. This is the Bartholomew County's Veterans Memorial in Columbus, Indiana, by Thompson and Rose, 1997. A very unique feature of this memorial is on each column, there are inscriptions of letters from the various members of the armed forces that were sent to their family, spouses, and friends. It was really quite moving. It was a very striking sculpture, and the fact that they had these letters on the sculpture itself added a great deal of emotion to the structure. Next, parallel. Detail of the overhang on the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center by the London-based firm of Nicholas Grimshaw and Partners in association with Helmut Abada and Kassebaum, HOK 2001. Next, planes. The McNamara Alumni Center at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis by Antoine Predock with KKE Architects, 2000. Next, prism. This is the detail of the roof of the former Citizens National Bank in Oklahoma City by Bailey, Bozales, Dickinson, Roloff, 1956. This image represents my attempt to crop the negative tightly to generate an altered perspective of the building. So as we've been talking, Patty, this really is a great example of me cropping very tightly again.
Awesome.
Okay, next. This is projection, and this is a portion of the roof and vault of Lambert St. Louis International Airport by Helmut Yamasaki and Lineweber with Eduardo Contini and William C.E. Becker, structural engineers, 1957. Next, radiate. This is the Clark Bridge over the Mississippi River to Alton, Illinois, completed in 1994. The structure is a cable stay design referring to the cables wrapped with 40 acres of yellow plastic piping supporting the main span. Now, this shot I took not 1994, but I took soon after that. And this is one of those pictures that I don't think I would be able to take now because I was literally on the concrete barrier separating the opposing traffic lanes. But it's just such a dramatic picture that I couldn't resist. Next, reflection. The Gateway Arch by Eros Saarinen, 1965, reflected upon the Deloitte & Touche building, formerly the MCI building by Helmut Abada and Kasabam, HOK, 1987. And I just love that part where it really pops out with the bright reflection. Okay, next. This is relationship. This is parts of two Washington University Medical Center buildings in the foreground with the McDonald Pediatric Research Building by Perkins and Will of Chicago, 2000. In the background for this image, and many more that I've taken, I try to calibrate precisely the placement of all lines, shapes, forms to end at the edges of the composition. Next. Ridges. Roof of the First Church of Christ Scientist by Crom, Rikamaru, and Johansson, 1963. The feature I like most about this photograph is the roof's texture. To me, it almost looks like fabric, and photographing architecture whose texture resembles something other than what it is very fulfilling to me. So that was copper, but like I said, to me, it almost looks like fabric. So, okay, we can go to the next one. This is roof lines, and it's Temple Emmanuel's roof by Bernardi Mutrux Bauer Architects, 1962. Next, Saarinen Spire. This is a portion of the roof and spire of the North Christian Church in Columbus, Indiana by Eros Saarinen, 1964. Next, Salina Silos. These silos are located outside of Salina, Kansas. I was commissioned by the Salina Arts Council to take a photograph that captured the city for a poster they were going to use to commemorate the anniversary of an art fair that they sponsor. And I believe I achieved what I wanted in abstracting the silos so that they almost look like the spines of books. Next, sculpturesque. This is a detail of the amphitheater of the National Shrine of Our Lady of the Snows in Belleville, Illinois, 1960. This shrine is the largest outdoor shrine in North America.
So how do you get so high to do church roofs? Bonnie wants to know. Okay,
great question. I don't ever have to be
on a ladder?
On a ladder or on top of my truck, or because I'm shooting with the camera that has all kinds of movements and that has such a large negative, I'm able to capture parts of buildings that are very high up in the sky. But that's a good question. I get that question a lot, but I don't elevate myself.
You don't climb.
No?
All right.
All right, next. Serpentine. This is the detail of the Alcoa Corporate Center in Pittsburgh by the Design Alliance architects with August Rusley Associates, 1998. The effect I was trying to create in this photo was of a roller coaster. Can you see that? Anyone?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, next. Serration. This is the roof of Christ the King United Church of Christ by Mansky and Diekman, 1960. For this shot, I attempted to highlight the building's repetitive elements to suggest associations and contrast between recurring facets. Next, shapes. Detail of the Lois and Richard Rosenthal Center for Contemporary Art in Cincinnati by Zaha Hadid, and this was completed in 2003. Next, sharp. Detail of the Air Force Academy Chapel in Colorado Springs by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, 1962. This is an effect that I frequently use, which is utilizing the sky as an integral feature of a composition to accent a building's contour. And this is the perfect type of sky I love to shoot, where it's totally clear, and again, it just accents the profile of the building that I'm trying to capture. Next, shimmer. This is a detail of the Peter B. Lewis building at Case Western University in Cleveland by Frank Gehry, 2002. Next, striated. This is the pergola of Cummins Incorporated corporate office building in Columbus, Indiana by Roche, Dinkaloo and Associations, 1983. Next, textural. This is a detail of the roof to an entrance to Lambert St. Louis International Airport by Minoru Yamasaki for Helmut Yamasaki and Lineweber, 1957. This image, I think, succeeds in depicting architecture as something that doesn't easily reveal itself. To me, this almost looks like a whale, or the top of a whale. So I don't know if any of you remember this from when you travel and you go to Lambert Airport, and on the top parking level, they have these structures, and they were just so abstract to me that I couldn't help but take a picture. Next, threesome. This is a portion of the Art and Design building at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville by AAIC Incorporated, formerly AAI Campbell, 1993. Next.
Ken, do you, I'm sorry, do you use different lens filters to bring out different tones, such as the beginning of the sky?
No, I use no filters. That's another question I get asked a lot. I'm able to get the effect of the sky many times to such a degree that I don't really need them, but thanks for asking. This is tubular, and it's the McDonald Medical Science Building by Murphy, Downey, Wolford, and Richmond, 1970, part of the Barnes Jewish Children's Hospital complex. The tubular shapes of the building's east and west side houses its utilities. Next, twisted. This is the Schubert Club Heilmeyer Memorial Bandstand in St. Paul by James Carpenter, Design Associates, 2002. The structure actually looks like a saddle, but again, my aim is to capture the most interesting composition by positioning my camera in the exact location where I can achieve that goal.
So Ken, do you typically work with formal permission to shoot the buildings, or do you plant the tripod and take the shot?
I do the latter. My philosophy is take the picture and ask for permission later if I have
I see.
to. Yeah.
All right.
So good question. Okay, next. Okay, Undulate. This is the McDonald Planetarium, part of the St. Louis Science Center in Forest Park by Helmut Abada and Kassebaum, HOK, with Albert Alper, 1963. The exterior is a thin-shelled concrete cast in the shape of a hyperboloid. You may wonder why the planetarium looks this way and not a solid white exterior. Well, I was fortunate to shoot this during its restoration, so I have a unique shot that can't be replicated. Next, Vaulted. These are cross vaults at Concordia Seminary by Charles Clowder, 1926. Next, Waves. This is a detail of the Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts in Kansas City by Moshe Safdie, 2011. Next, Wedges, a portion of the roof and western exposure of St. Mark's United Methodist Church by Robert L. Fisher and Associates, 1964. Next, Window, a portion of the Frederick R. Weissman Art Museum at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis by Frank Gehry and Associates with MS&R Architects, 1993. This was one of the first buildings Frank Gehry experimented on with stainless steel before he went on to create the Bilbao Museum, the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, and the building, I forget the name of it, in Los Angeles that has the same style. And I believe that's it.
So Ken, a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for doing this evening. What got you interested in doing this in the first place?
I just always had a passion for architecture. You know, as you already mentioned, when I was young, I was drawn to it. A lot of times people ask me if I'm an architect or if I was an architect, and I could never do that because I'm very poor at math. But it's just been something that I've enjoyed doing. You know, it started out as me taking pictures of architecture and my friends wanting copies of my images. And I used to like to go to art fairs frequently, and I would see art, you know, photography exhibits and think, well, you know, my work by far is no better than this, but it's, I think, is good. And I should maybe try to show my work. And I started doing art fairs in 1996, I believe. And in addition to many, many exhibitions and solo exhibitions and group exhibitions, it just took off.
So tell me, tell everyone, you've gotten awards lately, several of them. What were the last two? One in particular was just recent. What was that?
That was for Waves, and that was for an exhibit in New York.
And the one before that?
Delineation, and that was for at the Foundry Art Center in St. Charles.
Very good. And the one before that?
Uh-oh, you're really testing.
I know, I'm really digging. What we know is we appreciate you being here. If people want to see more about you, we first of all have the book for sale in our gift shop at IPHF. You have a limited edition of hardcover printing collection of yours, and they're $50 a piece in the IPHF gift shop. So we invite you to come there. But if people want to see your work and your website, it is what I understand, Ken Konchel, right?
Yeah, no, it's, yes. Yeah.
Ken Konchel, what's your website?
KenKonchelPhoto.com.
KenKonchelPhoto.com. And and I hear Randy says, thank you, and lovely images and a great eye and generous for you to share.
Oh,
And
thank you.
Ken, we appreciate it. So if folks want to get, here we go, kconchel@sbcglobal.net is how to get a hold of you if somebody wants to email you. And I also want to tell folks about, real quickly, about upcoming events that are coming up at IPHF. Check out the website at iphf.org, and you will see different, first of all, our Masterworks exhibition. We're open Wednesday through Saturday from 11 to 5. And we have different workshops and lectures for you to participate in. Is there anything you'd like to thank? Is there anything you'd like to thank in particular, Ken? And Ron Crook says, thank you, and lovely images and a great eye and generous for you to share, says Randy. So at any rate, we appreciate your time tonight, and thank you so much for being with us and volunteering for IPHF. You're a wonderful guy. And again, another time for other upcoming events, such as the Living and Learning, capturing different folks coming up, and you can see things as they scroll. But go online at iphf.org and join us. Thank you so much tonight, and thank you, Ken, once again.
Thanks, Patty, very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.